he will wake you up. This is a man I started covering when I was a young reporter, and we went back over that along with our soon-to-be acting managing editor, Chai Hofilenya. So I remember Richard Gordon as the mayor of Olongapo, and in many instances, everything he started then, he continues now, right? He was, I guess he's been with the Red Cross for more than 40 years. You can argue that it is in his roots. He's been elected to the Senate 3 times, and in 2013 was elected in absentia to the International Federation of the Red Cross. This is a man who knows what to do during disasters. I've certainly put him on air on CNN a very long, many times through the years, and he continues to be a voice for disaster risk reduction. Everyone, please give a large round of applause for Senator Richard Gordon.
Thank you, Maria. So good to see you again, and nice to have lunch with you. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat, especially kay, andyan na ba si Congressman Salceda, ating governor? Buwaba lang, okay. And of course, Manny Mamba is here. Hi, Manny, how are you? And of course, Luigi Toda of Oxfam, and all the other VIPs here, like Carissa Galia, and of course, Darwin Flores, Vice President for Community Partnership, and Moni Lagan, Mayor of Cainta, and of course, my colleagues from the IFRC, the International Federation, headed by Patrick Elliott over there, and my colleagues in the Red Cross Society of the Philippines. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. What a great pleasure and honor to be here this afternoon. At ako excited na makapunta rito because I think this is about my second or third time, if I'm not mistaken. And today, I think somebody pulled a fast one over me. I was supposed to come in regular attire, but somebody told me at the last minute, you have to wear a suit, sir. And, you know, and I don't like wearing suits. You hardly see me even in the Senate wearing suits. I don't like being a suit. But anyway, to make a long story short, you've asked me to speak on gearing up, the Red Cross gearing up, I suppose, for disasters. And all our lives, we go around the idea, the moment you're born, that you gear up for life. And you have a heuristic notion towards preparing yourselves for all kinds of challenges. Having been in the Red Cross for more than 49 years, I think, and that ages me, I suppose. My mother was in the Red Cross for 63 years. So I'll try to beat that record. But nonetheless, let me just say that the Red Cross has, along with being in the Boy Scouts or being an ROTC officer or being educated by the Dominicans, the Augustinian sisters, the Capuchin fathers, and the Jesuits, and being an atheist in UP, I guess they put me all together, and I was able to put together something like some mantra. You know, when you have disasters, I think of the Latin phrase, si vis pacem para bellum. I don't know why it came to my mind as I was about to stand up today. If you want to win the peace, prepare for war. And in a country that has so many disasters, natural, man-made, we have a plethora of disasters. You have the eruption of the century, Mount Pinatubo. You had the greatest sinking incident of a vessel, not the Titanic, but Doña Paz, which killed about 6,000 people. You have the earthquake in Cabanatuan. Yesterday we had an earthquake, and it kind of scared me because every time we have something going on in Mindanao, like you had the Zamboanga siege, we had the Bohol earthquake, and then suddenly we had the onslaught of the Yolanda typhoon, which was the biggest typhoon to hit the face of the earth at that time. Having said that, one has to think right away of structuring your life around the typhoon. You know, the Koreans invented kimchi because they're always cold and di sila makapagtanim. So, yung kimchi nilalagay nila sa ilalim para pagka taggutom na sa winter, they dig it out and they adapt and they have something to eat. In our country, we have no time. Hinga lang ang pahinga sa mga bagyo, sa mga disasters. Right now, you have Marawi, you had an earthquake the other day, and of course, there's a disaster of bad governance in this country. You know? I think all of us are responsible for that to a certain extent. So let me just try to give you some mnemonic devices. I call it the 4 Ps. Handling a disaster is like going to school. You have to predict what you want to do. So the first word is predict. Dali lang yan. Pangalan ko, Dick. So, predict. Yan. So, you have to predict what you're up against, the challenges. You have to plan. You have to prepare. You have to practice. Just me. Like me. I mean, I wanted to be a lawyer after my father was assassinated, and I wanted to know the law, find out what we can do about the situation. And so what happened? I took up law, and I had to prepare for the war, and I had to practice for it. And when you're already a lawyer, you practice every day. So predict, plan, prepare, practice. Now, you know you're going to be hit by 22 to 24 typhoons, 4 of them serious every year. You know you could have an earthquake. If you live in Leyte, Surigao, Davao del Sur, thereabouts, Davao Oriental, chances of an earthquake can happen more often than in other places. But then it can hit you like it hit us in Cabanatuan and in Baguio. Sabay pa. And, of course, in this era of speed, even the disasters are very speedy. They can all sabay-sabay, pwedeng sabay-sabay. For an example, what you had in 9/11, 9/11, you had 3 or 4 planes, I think it was 4 planes, that were hitting 3 different places at the same time, and creating mayhem and deaths all over. And of course, you could have what's happening in London. You have to be prepared for that. Monterey, the Manchester bombing, people running around in a truck, and then sinasagasaan lahat yun nandun sa shopping area on a Christmas season in Germany. You have to be prepared for anything. And so in the Red Cross, we decided that we would really come out with the 4 Ps, predict, plan, prepare, practice, so you can cope, mitigate, relieve, rehabilitate, and resurrect. So those are my, wherever I go, I think about that thing. And always, it's always second nature. I even have practices in the Red Cross when Manchester was burning, and had that bombing. I always tell my people, what are you going to do? And I always call all the department heads and say, what are we going to do? And write down what we're going to do. And no disaster is exactly, you can have a general layout, but it's going to be different. For example, nobody expected that in Yolanda it would be that big. I prepared my people and said, all right, make sure that you have your families assured. Take them out. We have to stay here because we're Red Cross, we're volunteers. We have to take care of our people. And then, when the winds and the waves struck, my chapter administrator ended up on the roof of the Red Cross. She tied the ambulance to the post at nandun siya sa taas kasama niya anak niya until it was over. And she got very traumatized by it. And she retired from the Red Cross. So today, let me just say that if you look at the screen, you can see I asked her, kamusta na dyan? And he said, sir, nakakatakot situation ngayon. And that was the last time I heard of it. The next time I heard it was an Australian girl saying, I'm really terrified. A lot of people are looting. You have to come here. Everybody's hungry, etc., etc. And kailangan magkaroon tayo ng pagkakataon makapagligtas. And learning from all that, I suppose when you predict, you know what you're fighting against, you always have to remember, like I use the words, si vis pacem para bellum. We are in a war, and therefore you have to have an army. And what is the best army in the world? It's an army of committed people who volunteer, not just because they want self-worth, but because they want to make a difference in the lives of the people, especially when it's really very, very gory and very, very difficult. And so in the Red Cross, one of our fundamental principles is volunteerism. And in the Red Cross, you will have phrases like, you go to the most vulnerable. We're not a charitable organization. I never encourage that. I say we're a humanitarian organization, so we're there to alleviate human suffering and to uplift human dignity. That's what we are. You're never going to see us giving things like that. You're never going to see me handing out stuff. We make sure that as we support the people, they are getting back on their lives right away. So we created 143 volunteers. And if you look at the screen, I love you. 143. We used to do that when we were in college or high school. Nagliligaw kami para pag nabasted, hindi halata. I love you. Sasabihin pa na iba, nabasted. Di ko naman sinabing I love you, I hate you. No? But anyway, when you have that, so we create one leader plus 43 people, or 44. Why 44? One squad, ROTC days. 11, 11, 11, 11, north, south, east, west. Hindi namin kaya maglagay ng CCTV. So 11, 11, and we put up a little red cross with all the different shebang, like a safety. You better know how to do CPR, at least in that area. The dream is to have a CPR expert in every house, first aid person in every home in this country. And you have, of course, blood. People always need blood, and we are the best in blood. We were the ones who started it here in the Philippines in 1947. And, of course, you have health. You know, the big epidemic, one of the biggest disasters in the world was the big flu epidemic that happened all over Europe, all over the United States, and everybody kept it quiet. They even blamed it on the Spanish. They called it the Spanish flu. And people were dying because they didn't want to say that the flu was there because there was a war going on. But it killed more than 50 million people at the time. So, quiet disaster, but it did kill a lot of people. So, when you have people in the neighborhood, they can whistle. When there's time to evacuate, they can warn by whistling. And, of course, they can provide for blood, and they can provide for first aid. They can call ambulances, and they can tell you what is the wreckage so that you'll be able to prepare how to relieve and rehabilitate. So ngayon, ang pinag-uusapan natin dito ngayon is yung gearing up. When you say gear up, we have all these volunteers, as you can see on the screen, over the years. Ayan, makikita nyo, Laguna, Parayaque. We now have volunteers all over the country, and I would say volunteers go in and out. I would say we have about a minimum of 500,000 to 2 million volunteers at any one time. Depending, pagka may disaster, lumalabas lahat yan. And so, all these volunteers, we try to train them. They get the module of training. Kung 143 ka, what you see, what you hear, you're like a reporter, who, what, where, when, how, why, and you report it to an operations center, which I'll explain to you later. When you have an army, therefore, you can actually make the move. So later on, I'll try to go fast here. Then you have the logistics. When you have the logistics, you know where to get blood. And there are blood banks, blood centers everywhere in the country run by the Red Cross. So if we need blood, we can provide blood in the area, or we can provide blood where there's a shortage. So every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, we're preparing. We have blood in the Red Cross. Today, at July 8, at 9 o'clock a.m., we had already served 113,424 people, served 175,452 blood. And if you look at the slide, the next slide after that, it will show you that our inventory is 13,112 this morning. It will go up or down by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So if there's a disaster, like in Marawi, we can send 200 bags of blood right away so that the soldiers can have blood all the time. Now we go on and say, let's go on and say, if you have volunteers, you have to know how to save lives. Anong klaseng volunteer kung wala kang ability? You have to have skill. First aid, that's important. You know, don't take that for granted. So we train people in first aid. So when we train people in first aid, we co-opt them and try to get them into the Red Cross. To date, we have already about 120,000 target every year. As of July 7, we're running low, 22,220. And of course, we're very far from our target because we're supposed to get 25 every week. And because of all the disasters, hindi na kami magkaugaga, makapag-train. But we have trained also many people in last year. So we at least, I'm sure, will have 100,000 first aiders. And they're organized to react when the time comes. Next slide, please. So, you know, this is when you have a disaster, you'll need a surface of 10. How many of you are aware that there are only 32,000, I'm rounding it off, beds in Metro Manila? So, ngayon, puno na lahat yan. Pag nagkaroon tayo ng disaster, lalo tayong mahirapan because it will not be only standing room but lying in. There will be too many people trying to get into the hospital and there will be no space. That's why, through the years, we provided for tents. And we have this rub hall, and if you look at me kneeling down in a tent in Calamba, Laguna, when they had some sort of an epidemic of typhoid, the following day we had that tent, and we had 100 people lying in that tent with suero, with pharmacy, and everything like that. Next slide, please. So we have advanced medical posts and everything like that. We can train, we can put up a tent in 6 hours, a medical post tent with doctors. Go ahead. And we have all kinds of tents. If you're going to have a tent city in Marawi, we can provide some of those tents, maybe about 10,000 tents. We also have all kinds of tents. We have surgical tents. We have tents for maternity. We have wards in our tent system. And you can see in Zamboanga, Maribojoc, and Yolanda, those are 3 different types of disasters all at the same time, and our tents were being used in all those areas at the time. Go ahead. So we also deployed in Nepal. We had 29 people there. We had 5 doctors from Makati Medical Center, from Gordon Memorial Hospital, and from other hospitals in the country, and we sent them there. And they gave the first, cesarean section at the time. They also almost died because the second earthquake there landed very, very near where they were, and they had to be withdrawn by helicopter. So we're everywhere. We went to, we are in Ebola country. We had one there, and we had one in the earthquake in Bolivia, or if I'm not mistaken, and they taught people how to build and erect those tents, and that was Rex de la Cruz. When he went to Ecuador, I'm sorry, not Bolivia. I was thinking of the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They went to Bolivia. Next slide, please. And we can produce water. Water is always a shortage, everywhere. Sanitation is always an issue. I've been through many disasters. When there are tents, they don't have water. So we have all kinds of water filtration devices. We have the Spanish type. We have the LMS. We have the big one from Sweden, which can supply 40,000 people water a day. So, and we have a system. As you can see, we're using our logistics right. We would have the water from the whatever dirty water, if you will. You have the LMS or the Spanish type, and then you will have a water tanker. We have water tankers in the Red Cross. I'm getting another 2 more because we're getting hard pressed in Marawi. And we have bladders where we store the water, 10,000 liters, and the people just line up with the faucets that we installed there at para makakakilos sila. And you go on very fast. Let's go a little faster. We have fire trucks as well. They also augment our water system, and we also quell fires. Pag may earthquake, kapatid dyan, sunog. So we had 17 fire trucks. I went to Japan, talked to my friends in the Congress there, and we were able to get 17 fire trucks. And we're getting another donation of a fire truck in Subic about this month. So you can see them in action every night. They've been to 200 fires to date. And of course, we have had all kinds of things. Let's go to the next slide, please. And we have rescue trucks. In case of a disaster like an earthquake, you will need special tools. When I was in Cabanatuan, we had no tools. We had baretas. We had nothing, and it was very frustrating. We had a lot of people, but they couldn't get in. We had the U.S. Marines, the U.S. Navy, and we had the Philippine Army, and we couldn't get as many people that we could save. So when I became chairman of the Red Cross, first thing that I did was get a rescue vehicle, got my friends to donate, and now we have 10 of those, and we have some in Visayas, in Bohol, and we're going to station 1 in Mindanao as well. They are very expensive with the equipment there, and the training is quite difficult and challenging. We also provide generator sets and tower lights. So this is all part of the Laging Handa thing. Next slide, please. And then you have 136 ambulances. So you have an army of ambulances that can pick up all the people at any time, any place, anywhere. You can see, that's why you should donate to the Red Cross. We pick up people on the streets, especially motorcycles, every night. 32,894 as of 2017, 445 paid, and the rest were free, 32,449. So you can see it's not an easy job. Hindi pa kumikita yan. Next slide, please. And to augment this, in case of a mass casualty event, we have Humvees that can go into rough terrain, can go into debris. And we also have trucks, that can go into floods and can go into rough terrain, 6x6 trucks. And we also augment that with Pathfinder motorcycles, and we have partnerships with the Motorcycle Association, radio associations. So what I'm leading up to is a symphony of things with volunteers and logistics, as you can see happening here. Those floods can negotiate Those trucks can negotiate floods, and the motorcycles can guide our ambulances in tight spots. Next slide, please. And we have come out with 10 warehouses, obviously, because we now have a ship. We don't want that ship to go back and forth from Manila, so we now have warehouses in 10 different areas in the country. We have 29 wing vans so that we could bring the cargo anywhere in the country. And, of course, the next slide will show you, we have food kitchens that, I authored the food donation law. I would like more volunteers so that we can get the food from Marriott and they give us, maybe Sofitel and they don't give us, maybe Manila Hotel and they haven't given us. And, if I had more volunteers knocking on their door, we can get food from them, and then we can give the hungry, not to make them dependent, but at least tide them over and take over the nutrition lack in many of our poor people here. But they're very useful. We provide hot meals as we did in Marawi. Next slide, please. And we have a little navy. We have the amphibians that can bring them to floods and even to places like Talim Island, and they're supported by rubber boats. And you can see Indiana Jones in this picture very, very fast. See, look for Indiana Jones. He's somewhere there. Move. Right? Can you see Indiana Jones? Not yet. Not yet. Because Indiana Jones is not there. It's Indiana Dick Gordon. All right. and we were able to go to places like Talim Island and go to all kinds of floods. And there you go. There's the hat. And we were able to make it a little speedy so they can see what we're going to go for. In terms of going to this area that has been isolated during Ondoy. Next slide, please. Next slide, Kat. And, of course, to support our rescue logistics, we have 7 payloaders. They clear debris, and when there's buildings that collapse, we can use this. Or when there is debris on the farms, we can use this to clear the farm, as we did in Bungabong. Look at Bungabong, Nueva Ecija. They asked for help, and we sent them our payloader. And in 3 months, mud was taken out, and irrigation was restored. And voila, they were planting corn again. Corny na sila ulit. All right, okay. Next slide. Let's go, Kat. So there you go. We even have air-conditioned vans as well as for the dead. And, of course, body bags. We don't want the dead. We believe in managing and respecting the dignity of the dead. So we always have this stuff so that we can take care of them, identify them properly, and then put them in containers like this, refrigerated containers, until they are positively identified. If we cannot identify them, if the government will let us, sometimes they have to rely on other countries to do that for us, and I think we can do it. We know how to bury the dead, 1 meter apart, and you get a camera, get all the facial characteristics and body characteristics on their clothes, put them together, record it, so when the families arrive looking for a missing person, we can identify them. We have done that. Next slide, please. So there you go. These are some of our warehouses. They double up as convention center as well as training centers. And, we have even put solar power there. So we only pay 5 pesos for power in that warehouse, 3-hectare warehouse in Cebu, in Mandaue. We're converting that now. In Pasig, for Panay, in a strategic area, they take care of Iloilo, Capiz, Aklan, and Antique. So that's a very new one. And we did that with the Koreans and the Red Cross movement. There you go. And, of course, they already have their equipment as well. And, this is our Namayan warehouse in Mandaluyong and many other places. We have one in Subic, in Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, in Ilocos Norte, so that we can draw out stuff when we need to do so. Next slide, please. And final part of it is relief and rehabilitation. When we do relief, we remember the dignity of people. Volunteers like you can line up the goods that are going to be given, give the people beneficiary cards. There is no jostling, there is no pushing, there is no grouping, there are no fights. They come in, why? Babae lang at saka senior citizens ang pwede. Ang lalaki hindi pwede. Pag maraming asawa yung lalaki, baka yung no-showing lang ang bibigyan niya. Kaya hindi sila bibigyan doon. Kaya they go in and line up like that, and then we also teach them a little of what we want to teach people. We teach them how to evacuate, and we try to give people whistles. So if you're not paying attention, there you see, I got your attention. And that's the first thing I teach them. Listen, makinig kayo. Kung may parating na bagyo, alam nyo na kung anong gagawin nyo. And then, pagka ready na tayo mag-evacuate, pag pumito na yung mga volunteer ng that means pick up your cargo or your food or whatever you got, and that's your family, and we whistle. That means time to evacuate, and you have to know where to go, and you have to have that properly planned so you know how to tell your families where you're going to meet kung magkahiwalay kayo. So it's not fun, but at least you know that people are not treated like they're mendicants and they get around getting there. So go ahead. There you go, rain or shine, we do that. Can you go to the next slide, please? And that's the president of the Red Cross of the International Federation, Japanese guy, and who came over. He thought he was only going to Cebu, and I said, we're going to Leyte. And they fretted. And when we got them to Leyte, when we got back, are we going home now? No, we're going to Bohol. And by the time we got out, they were really nervous because it was nighttime, and I said, you're in the Red Cross. We have to reach to as many vulnerable people as we can. I had fun. I don't know if they did have fun. Next slide, please. And we are not a mendicant organization. Yes. And because of that, we also give to other countries. Nakakaya kung kabig tayo, walang tulak. Para tayo mga politiko, puro kabig, walang tulak. And so you have $25,000 for Katrina, for Nepal, $37,000 that you can read for yourself. And then if you look at the final big one, was $2.4 million US dollars for the tsunami in Japan. And I was in San Miguel Corporation yesterday, and they gave 40 million pesos to Japan through the Red Cross, and that's because they have Kirin beer, their partners, so they wanted to make sure that they're there. Next slide. So, you go on to the housing. You can show some of the houses here. We have already built over 144,000 homes in Haiyan alone. We have already built 78,000 homes. Go quickly, please. We have built schools. We have the schools that were built there by volunteers and by the owners. We don't build it for them. And also, we provide livelihood. We provide toilets. And they built it themselves. And for the schools, we built it for them, and we made sure that they had what? They had bidets. Because our schools don't provide toilet paper. So we provided bidets for them. Sabi ng isang principal doon sa Aklan, ayoko nang umalis sa eskwela ko, dito lang ko, may shower na may bidet pa. Ano yung bidet? Sabi ko, yung gumaganon doon sa gano'n. So next slide, please. So, I guess what I'm trying to tell you is if we put it all together, we now have an operation center. This is what we put together. If you're a volunteer, you're in the red. There you go. All those red spots identify the volunteers that we have. We have their telephone number. And like the last time, the other day, we called the volunteers. We called the first aiders. They're all in green. Green, please. And you can see on the right side their names and their address. This one is in Cavite. We have everywhere from Olongapo to Marawi to Zamboanga. We all have that, and we can mobilize. This is the mobilization part when you have a disaster. This is really the fun part. And then, of course, then that's the time you also put in your logistics. You put in the ambulances. They all have radios. So if they need 10 ambulances and you only have 5, you call in the next town, next province to provide the ambulances so we can really go ahead. I do not like being shown that. I will get upset with you. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. And then you have doctors. You need doctors. Baka namatay yung doktor sa hospital o sa nahulugan ng hospital. We have all the doctors, the surgeons, and everything. So we can pick up the surgeons. We need an orthopedic doctor. We need a brain surgeon. They will come. And we have the PMA also with us. We have also the Philippine Construction Association with us. So if they have equipment, they can provide us with us. Now, the volunteers tell us, huwag na kayong dumaan dito, siraan tulay. Kung dadaan sa EDSA, we're trying to have volunteers who will create a humanitarian highway and say, tumabi kayo, dadaan dyan yung mga emergency equipment. We're still not yet finished with that. The long and the short of this is, if you want to prepare for a disaster, you've got to have a symphony orchestra called a humanitarian movement with all the doctors, nurses, all the people working together, all the logistics that you need to do, working with the government, Hindi kayo nagpapataasan ng yabang, pero you're working together. That's why in Marawi, you can see in Marawi, we're there. We have been able to help right away from day one along the highway. We were providing them with hot meals, water, and also, you know, there are the volunteers along the highway. And then when you go to the area, there is a community center there for health. Nanganganak yung iba. There are ambulances to bring them to emergency situations in hospitals. There's the maternity clinic. There's also what we call restoring family links. We look for people, those who had trauma. We have people who are expert in that, and they are provided with the help. And we have Maranao volunteers galore. You give them a big hand because they really deserve to really get that big hand, even if they don't hear it. And finally, let me tell you that because sanitation is important, we have the water trucks there, 4 trucks, 10,000 liters each, and their clean water is being served. And at the same time, when they get that, they also have toilets. We brought portalets in Mindanao for the first time. It's a big winner there, and we're going to get more portalets. And of course, we provided with showers. The first time we provided them with improvised showers. There are no showers there. We used the jerry cans, 2 of them, and you know, we turn them on. Of course, they're in a tent, nobody can see them, and they can go hands-free in the shower facility. So there you are. We pay even paying that. So you see, you have to improvise. You need innovation. You need to organize ahead. You have to predict the danger. You have to plan for the danger. You have to have the manpower. You have to have the resources, the logistics, and you have to know how to get it done. And to get it done, you have to make sure that you try to get nothing is impossible. Take the I am out of the word impossible and make it possible. And that is why today we even have a ship. Voila. Not just amphibian anymore, but we have a ship. It moves. There. It can land on the beach. It can go on the port, or any port. And like the last several disasters, we could not even land on the piers. Now we can land on the beach because the ramp goes down and the trucks go out, the tents go up, the ambulances go out, volunteers go out, and we take in, if we have to evacuate, if we have to pull them out. And it travels at 20 knots, and it costs us a pretty penny, but when you do your work, whether you're Oxfam, Red Cross, or anybody else, you earn the respect, and people will trust you, and they will provide you with the resources. And when you do your work, you should have more volunteers. How many here are volunteers of the Red Cross? Please stand up. Stand up. Under the law, any person can be a volunteer of the Red Cross. Try standing up, everybody, please. Go. I don't want to see anybody sitting down. And give me 3, I don't want to say claps, 3 applause. 1, 2, 3. Sabay-sabay. 2, 1. Saan ba kayo nag-aaral? Sa Lasal? Biro lang yan, biro lang yan. So you have to have, there are lights here, that's all right. You have a good basketball team. Anyway, so we have to be in symphony with one another. Kaya ba natin? There you go. Thank you very much. And that is the Red Cross Dog and Pony Show.
Thank you very much, Senator Richard Gordon.